Now this pattern is called the Armadillo Fancy.
Presumably after a specific person or
It's,
a specific beat or...
A beat on the spey. This is oval silver that we use for the tag. Now on a double hook we put about 4 or 5 turns. It's been wound towards the tail of the fly and up between the 2 hooks. And it's held with the forefinger. Normally you would use a golden pheasant crest, but this time it's the golden pheasant yellow plumage feather, because it's not much use for anything else.
And you're only using the centre tip?
Just the centre.
And you always put that tip?
Now marabou floss is quite a hard floss, and so if you wound it directly from the reel you're apt to get ridges. So if you actually split the floss in 2 and wind the 2 strands together, you get a smoother body.
I notice you haven't cut the surplus material off that tail you put in. Do you just leave that as part of the body?
Leave it just now, because if you start cutting all the material short, you're going to get a thick body, then suddenly it'll go thin.
So you get a nice even body?
Yes. You've always got to leave enough room for the hackle and the wing. This is one of the faults when people first start to tie flies. They don't leave enough room. Make sure when you start the body the floss is tight up against the silver tag.
Do you overlap the windings, Jim, or do you
Just slightly overlap them. Then about 4 or 5 turns, depends on the size of the hook, maybe 4, 5 or 6 turns of the oval silver for the rib. So in theory, when you wind the hackle on down towards the eye, all the hackles will lie back towards the tail.
I take it you don't overlap the turns of the hackle?
No, side by side. If you overlap them, they'll slide off each other and everything will go slack. Now the wing on an armadillo is black squirrel. This is squirrel tail dyed black, and it's a fairly long wing.
Would you only use squirrel in this fly, Jim, or would you use bucktail? Or?
If it was a very big fly, I mean, you can get armadillo as tube flies or a Waddington, and you've got to use the bucktail to get the length. You see, long wing flies and long tailed flies are coming very popular the last 2 or 3 years. You can get imitation ones that are quite good, but only down to a certain size. But you can't get them to do size maybe 8s to 12s. You just don't make them. And these jungles are tied in short.
Tie them in one at a time, rather than trying the 2 at once.
You match them up so that it's the same length and on the sides. Now the knot you attach a salmon fly to the leader is always a jam nut, where the nut is behind the eye, so there's got to be a space between the head and the eye of the hook, so that the jam nut can be jammed
tight behind the eye.
Tight behind the eye.
And again, this is this whip finish.
whip
Jim.
finish.
About 4 or 5 turns,
5 or 6 on this.
5 or 6.
And sometimes if I want to be very safe, I double whip it. And
Just to secure the tightness of the thread.
Yep. There is actually a whip finish tool they've brought out, but I always think a one done by hand is much better. Now that's the fly finished, and the Armadillo has a red head. It's varnished red.
Varnish, completed
Yeah.
red.
But what I do, I give it a coat of clear, put it aside, and the clear varnish soaks into the head. Then give it a red head when it's dry.